When I started building the In ERA Fenrir, well, I guess I didn't know what I was getting myself into. This was a ridiculous build. I've built, well, plenty of plastic model kit robots. Japanese ones from Bandai, Kotobukiya, Good Smile Company, I'm pretty sure there's a whole lot more. And I've built a bunch of Chinese manufactured kits recently, which are super impressive. This one has impressed me the most. I mean, I've had to do 2 full-length videos just on its build, which is something I've never done before. Mainly because I didn't expect it to be such, well, a massive build. The first part was the inner frame, the skeleton of the mecha. It's beautiful, it's functional, it's ridiculously detailed. Video the second was just on armoring it up and the cacophony of weapons that come inside of the box. Or, well, should I say bag? I opted for the bag. To put it simply, the only other model kit that I would have built that's this same level is the recently released and over-the-top perfect grade new Gundam Unleashed by Bandai. This is pretty much the same sort of level of model kit, built-in layers, tons of detail, even more accessories than that, but in a much, well, not much, but a smaller package. Anyway, we've talked about the build enough, it's time to get on into the full review, so let's get right on into it. As usual, when it does come to Chinese manufactured kits, I got this off AliExpress, so if you do want to support more of these types of reviews, then check out that link in the description, grab one for yourself, and support the channel. Alright, so here we are, finally at the review desk, and we're moving right on into the aesthetics. This is pretty big, so I guess the first question here is just how big is the In ERA Fenrir? So, size comparison right out the gate. So throwing the Fenrir down beside the universal Mecha model kit scale system, and that of course is some gunpla. There it is side by side with the high grade version of the RX 782, the master grade version of the RX 782, and finally the perfect grade unleashed version of the RX 782. So as you can see, it does fall somewhere between master grade and perfect grade in size, definitely a little towards master grade in height, not necessarily in volume, but it's definitely quite, well, most of the way there, and definitely there when it comes to detail. But yeah, the RX 782 is the standard mecha model kit unit of size. Well, when it does actually come to the perfect grade Unleashed New, which I was talking about, it is magnitudes bigger than your standard perfect grade Gundam. So as you can see, this is double the size compared to what we're taking a look at today. So even though the In ERA Fenrir, I would say, matches it detail per detail, and engineering wise, of course it is smaller, so you're getting less of that per centimeter of mecha surface, if you're getting what I'm talking about. Even though it is about the same when it comes to overall engineering and detail, there's more packed in to the new Gundam. Alright, so with the size accounted for, it's time to talk about the overall aesthetics. Now, as far as I know, none of these designs are from anything in particular, so there is no original art or anything like that to compare them to. They just are original mecha as they stand. And as it stands, this thing is gorgeous. Anyway, speaking of size, this is the kit finished in the hand, and all I can say is this is really nice. When it does come to the universal mecha model kit scale being high grade, master grade, and perfect grade gunpla, I've always found that the perfect middle ground was master grade. Good size, lots of nice detail. Once you get up to perfect grade, they can get a bit cumbersome. Sure, they have great shelf presence and fantastic detail, but the problem is they can be hard to pose or just play around with in general, or get into a kind of nice shape without getting, well, overly heavy. This is kind of a nice middle point between master grade and perfect grade. It's not too big, it's not too small, but it's still very nicely weighted, solid, and looks great. Speaking of which, I've got it under multiple different lights here because the studio lights can sometimes blow it out a little bit, so you can see what it looks like, again, under multiple different lightings, including natural light. Continuing on with the looks, there it is spinning the whole way around so you can check out everything for yourself. First off, when it comes to the overview, this thing is absolutely beautiful. The proportions are great. You can see that this is, like a lot of Chinese kits, very inspired by Gundam Barbatos. We've got pistons going everywhere that's exposed. That's the waist, ankles, knees, all of those sort of places. When it comes to the color separation, this is very nice, and the color layout is nice. The white is split into pure white and light gray. We've got multiple metallic tones in here, being gold and silver working very nicely together and popping against the satin finish of the standard white. When it comes to alternate colors, the only real color in here is the red. We do have clear blue as well, and all I can say is overall this thing just looks beautiful. Stuff is layered nicely coming from under layers, exposed elements like the spine round back, and we do have those nice 3-dimensional stickers, which again was a perfect grade Unleashed staple. Now also on this bad boy right here. Alright, so now jumping on in for a closer look at each of the various individual elements. So first up is the head. I will mention that the eyes are fully color separated in this, and we do have multiple options when it comes to the eyes. We do have gold and blue in here as well. Beautiful V-fin up there in the top of the head again, layered upon layered upon layered. We've got the crystal clear blue section in the middle with some chromed out silver behind to make it pop, and we do have gold, grey, and black to the V-fin too. We've got an option of ear sections. Those ears you're seeing on the sides of the head, you can have them removed entirely just for a more Gundam-esque head, which this definitely does look like. If you flip it all the way around to the back, we've got almost what looks like a secondary head, which is a cool kind of approach to the rear head camera. It has eyes of its own looking right back there, almost giving a little bit of a Gundam G self kind of vibe. Pretty cool. Next up, moving down to the torso, and when it does come to Gundam model kits when I'm doing this particular section, there's not really a whole lot to say. It's usually blocky torso, the end. What's going on here is incredible. First off, what we're seeing right in the middle, that is a little flyer that can, well, eject and fly off on its own. What we're seeing is the actual pilot inside of the cockpit, which is an incredibly nice touch. Get that guy painted up in there and it will look phenomenal. So again, that is a little bit of a flyer with cannons up top. The folded wings then extending up the torso a little bit. In the sides, we've got those definitely Iron-Blooded Orphans inspired pistons going on in there, but what's really unique on this and I've never really seen before is this around back. That golden spine is absolutely phenomenal looking. Again, builds up very nicely. The section above also builds up very nicely. That is your thruster unit. And that also has some nice opening segments that open just like so. Whoa. All right, that was 100% my fault. I didn't know there was a mechanism here. So the top opens up, move these ones at the same time, and it actually pushes out the thruster balls. Ha! C-clips, am I right? Anyway, like they say, third time's a charm. Support it there so they won't pop off, and then you can slide it out nicely, and it all looks beautiful and extends that little thruster section. Sometimes when it does come to Gundam model kits, I can be at a little bit of a loss for words to say something new that I've never said before, but that is not the case here. There's so much going on. Onto the arms. First up is the shoulders. Again, incredible detail like the thruster or cannon or whatever that is section up top in gold. We've got lots of moving flaps and bits here, including this thruster, sliding mechanisms all over the place. But I'll leave all of this stuff till a little bit later on to show the kind of various moving parts in their static form and then in their moved form. But yeah, there is a lot going on here. When you do move it, so many things just move around, open up. There's just so much detail upon detail upon detail. Also, we do have fully articulated hands in here as well, which just look beautiful. So no matter what way you do pose it, you can match your pose with a nice posed hand. And these do perform very nicely so far. A lot better than something we would have seen on Master Grade Gunpla. But anyway, I should speed on through this or I'll be here all day. I'll talk about the moving flaps and stuff later. Anyway, there is the waist unit. Again, a very nice tight design, great curves. There's tons of moving parts in here, but we saw that already in the build videos. The sticker right there catching the light is a 3D style sticker, like we would have seen with the Perfect Grade Unleashed kits by Bandai, and they catch the light so much better than your standard sort of regular foil sticker. Moving on down to the legs now, one of the highlights of the kit, there's so much detail going on, it's so many moving panels. This definitely has a almost biological musculature to some of the aspects like the calf as well as the thigh. And speaking of the calf, we do have some nice shiny clear parts on the side of the legs, which are kind of reminiscent of something like Gundam Exia's condensers in the legs. Definitely a lot of Gundam inspired elements in this particular mech. Again, the general design of all the plates moving over each other just looks spectacular. And speaking of spectacular, some of the nicest elements here include the various pistons that you can see inside the joints. Of course, these are functional. We have some around in the back of the heel right here, as well as hidden away inside of the knee when it bends. Actually, no, there is none in the front knee. It's only back here in the rear of the knee. Now finally, when it does come to the model kit sins, aka that is the mold lines and the seam lines and the various different nub marks and all of that stuff, I would say there is 0 on this. All of the various parts have been designed in like kind of such small, tiny little pieces that there isn't really a mold lines. Mold lines is more like something you'd get when you get large pieces on a model kit. They've been designed nicely. When it comes to seam lines, I guess that's another good thing when a kit has a high part count. It means that there is no real seams running up anything, and everything holds together perfectly, looks good. As for the likes of nub marks, well, this kit is undergated for the vast majority of, well, it all, so that means you don't actually get anything. Anywhere you would have snipped is on the inside surface of the part, so there's none of those either. It essentially is, when it comes to a build and the visuals, a perfect model kit. And speaking of visuals, seeing as it's been just standing there the entire time so far, there is a couple of scenes I would have filmed for the build video of what it looks like in a pose. So it does look great standing there, but it has great articulation too, to make sure that it's going to look good in whatever crazy over-the-top pose you want with it, with the ridiculous armory of accessories. And speaking of which, let's get into them. So now jumping on into the accessories, and here's the In ERA Fenrir with absolutely everything that comes with it. And like I mentioned before, this comes with a literal armory. There's so much stuff in here. So first off, of course, we do have a full stand included. This is premium, beautiful. When it comes to the swords in here, we've pretty much 4 swords or 4 sword options. That is the whip sword, a part for attaching on the machete, the long slash blade, the jet large sword. When it comes to the ranged weapons, we've got a pair of weapons. These are the combination shotguns. These can do a whole lot. And when it comes to optional aspects in here, we've got these right here. These are mechanical arms, sub arms for up on the back. We've got a whole host of various different adapters and stuff for attaching stuff on. We've got a pair of dedicated holding hands, which is very nice. We've got wires for using with the weapons on the back of the arms. And finally, we do have this little pile of stuff. Now, this little pile of stuff is alternate colored parts for the cockpit, as well as multiple changes for the head, including color changes and ear removal. So yeah, all in all, this is a kit that comes with so many options. This is obscene, and they're all the same level of quality as the kit itself. Ridiculous. So first up in here, we've got the stand. So this is your, well, I'd say usual model kit stand, but it is extremely high quality. First off, down here, we do have this little plastic section. You can remove that and put in whatever image you want. We do have a flippable image right there. I just went for the name because it's nice, classy, and simple. It attaches into the base down here. I can press in more apparently, but I couldn't squeeze it in all the way. We have this locking mechanism right here, which will raise it into the air so you can have your aerial poses, or drop it perfectly to the ground. So it is sized exact just to hold on the ground when it is on the bottom, which is nice. Next up, we have the adapter right here. This has some good strength, so even if you do raise the Fenrir up, it is a heavy kit, but it has zero issues whatsoever, just, well, holding it up in the air like that. And it does attach into this kind of thruster section around back, so you don't have any kind of weird looking aspects back here when it is detached, just that little slot right there, which does, again, look somewhat like a thruster. Alright, so now working our way through the weapons. First up, we do have this chain whip sword, or whatever it was called. I don't have the instructions handy right now, but it is a whip style sword. So basically, well, it's a sword, and then you can lengthen all of these elements. They are extending, they extend out, and at the end then they lock into ball joints like so. So you have a nice whippy style weapon. And the coolest aspect about this is you're able to grab this here, which is the handle, and just bring it on up and around, tucked underneath like so. And then this little thruster segment round here, well, that's actually a ball joint adapter, so you can throw that in, or should I say ball joint socket, just like that, for one of the most interesting attachments of a weapon ever. It has now become a bit of a whippy tail back here. How awesome is that? Nice touch. Definitely adds more to the beastie element with the feet. And speaking of things that result in a bit of an upgrade to the unit, these are some sub-arms for up on the shoulders, aka the mechanical arms. So these attach into the shoulders, but they do actually have an elbow right here. This little section, what's essentially kind of like a wrist and twist up here, and then some absolutely badass finger articulation, which moves out just like so, like that. And I'm assuming some kind of a beam or otherwise weapon in the, I guess, palm right there. Just look how cool this is. It's got great articulation all around, and probably the best looking and performing sub-arm I've ever seen in a mecha model kit. That is a very, very nice touch. As for mounting these, they attach into some hard points up on the shoulders. They're a little hard to attach when they're folded up, so it's best to actually open them out, and then you can get a good grip on what you're doing, and both of them attach in just like so. These are so awesome. So there's a bit of an example of what they look like attached on. This one's still opened out the way I had it, so these can reach right on over just like so. So I suppose if it's in a bit of a melee clash, you could do a bit of a grab at the enemy, and it might be able to pass its weapons forward because they usually do mount up on the back. Again, getting these back into position is easy. These have great articulation, nice moving parts like this almost piston-y aspect right here. The manipulators fold up absolutely perfectly and neatly away like so, and that is what it's like around back. Again, adds to the design extremely nicely. Just looks like a pretty cool backpack. So we're jumping into the next weapon, and this is the machete. So this does have multiple moving parts. So this little handle section back here moves just like so. The blade has a bit of an extension gimmick, and we do have a part up top, which we would have seen before in the build video. This is for mounting that whippy tail sword into this for a sword that is essentially twice the size. A combination weapon, which all locks together absolutely perfectly. We saw that already, so we're going to check out what this can do today. So you do have a bit of a handle up top. You opt to use the posable hands if you want, but I'd say you'd have a better time using the pre-posed just grabbing hands. They're nice and solid. It's just tab into slot. I will mention these do have a nice bit of motion in the wrist, and then they sandwich closed as simply as that. So that's what the grip looks like. Looking good, solid, and beautiful. In order to attach this onto the mech, then you just pop off the hand that we had on already. These are very nice pegs. They work easily, simply, and you just pop in the other one just like so. Getting into a little bit of a sword wielding pose. Be careful not to disembody the tail with the stand round back. You can knock that off fairly easily. Just take that off beforehand or don't have it attached if you're trying to move the body around. This falls nicely into a pose, and there we go. There it is, posed with the first of the weapons, which is the machete blade. Of course, we have the other sword around on the butt, so both are equipped. Next up in here, we've got the long slash blade, and it's exactly as well it suggests. It's a long slashing blade. Again, great color, just like the mech itself, all over the place. White down the handle, some red detail in the central aspect, gold right in there, and a nice metallic silver blade. I did have this attached on during the build video. It looked a little bit like this. Again, it attaches into the hand the usual sort of way. I use the standard holding hands, the sandwich style ones, because they hold on better, and you can have this regular grip or reverse grip for any kind of poses that you want. But the coolest aspect about this, and again, we would have seen this before, is this mammoth thing right here. Now, this is super nicely detailed. Again, all the same details we would have seen on the actual mech itself, including those stickers, silver parts. These things are thrusters, so basically it's rocket powered. It is referred to as the Jet Large Sword. We've got tons of detail going on all over it, and well, it's absolutely beautiful, and tons of nice moving parts. So the coolest aspect about this is it's both a scabbard as well as an add-on for the other weapons. So you just open it up just like so, which is pretty cool. And now into this slot section, you can mount this particular blade. You pull this back like so, slide that all the way in, slam it shut. Let's try that again. You actually push it all the way until it clicks, then slam it shut, and then push this bit forward. And then when you want to remove it, apparently you pull this back, open this section up, and then press down the sword. And it just kind of suggests there should be a mechanism there, but doesn't seem to. Anyway, you can just pop it out just like so, and there is definitely something kind of springy feeling in there. But again, nothing actually seems to be happening when you press down on it. But it does come out easily enough. Getting this weapon attached is pretty much exactly the same as what we would have seen before. That is sandwich style hands, pop it into the wrist, and this is the ultimate test for a mech like this. Can it hold this massive ass beast of a sword? And the answer is no issue whatsoever. It's holding it parallel to the ground. Even if I hit it, moved around, it is not budging a millimeter. This is impressive. Pose it up, that is what it looks like in a pose, and damn, wow. I've seen a lot of kits with oversized weapons, but this one is dealing with this like an absolute champion. Nice. So next up in here we have the long range weapons, and once again no corners cut whatsoever. These are phenomenal. Next up we've got the long range weapons, and these are the shotguns. Now, no shortcomings here whatsoever. These are absolutely beautiful, just like the mech itself. Multiple colors all over the place, and the best thing is there's a lot of nice functionality going on here. For example, around back we've got what I assume is one form of ammo. I'm assuming it is energy, because they come out like kind of little batteries or capacitors just like so. So they pull out of the stock. Also up top here, we do have physical ammo. To get at this, you need to pull forward the front barrel, pull out this rear section, and that allows this magazine to be pulled out, which does have nice little red ammunition inside of it. So you can strip this whole thing down nicely. We also have this under section of the shotgun, which can actually, well, pull off entirely like this. So you can have a more stripped down single barrel version, or when this is attached on, it can also kind of drop down like so. As to why, I have absolutely no idea, but it's a pretty cool little feature overall. So yeah, once again, this is what it's like stripped down. Physical ammo in the top, locks in the back, locks in the front. Second little attachment back here attaches on into the stock, and then we've got that single barrel, and the other one pops on just like so. Again, absolutely beautiful, and we do have 2 of these. So when it comes to attaching on the shotguns, again, it's exactly the same as the weapon. Strip off the weapons, grab the hands, attach this into the hands. Again, the fit here is perfect, flush, beautiful, and then you just pop them into the wrists. Once again, posing, this is an absolute dream. I did a couple of poses here to kind of get that dual pistols or dual short shotgun flare going off, and this just works so well. Whether it's shooting all over the place with the shotguns crossed over, this just looks insanely nice. Great designed weapons, work with the mech so perfectly. This is so stylish, so awesome, nice. So if all of those accessories weren't awesome enough already, it gets even better. All of these can mount onto the unit. We've already seen the tail attached round back, but when it does come to the pair of shotguns, we've got a little bit of a tab that flips out on the side of these, and then these attach up onto the sub-arms up top. So I'm assuming the sub-arms can actually aim the cannons around the place. When it comes to the machete, we've got a little part for attaching onto the handle of this, which mounts it onto the side skirting just like so. Again, very, very secure. At first it feels like it isn't, you just have to make sure it's well pushed on in there. Finally, when it comes to the big, massive sword, we've got these little mounts that attach once again into the sub-arms around back. You attach a rig section onto those, and then the big old weapon attaches on, and there you go. There is every single weapon mounted onto the In ERA Fenrir, all perfectly, all beautifully, so there's so many options when it does come to display in here. And this is one of those kits that has those, and wait, there's more moments to it. So we've already seen in the build that we do have a full kind of escape pod flight jet section in the chest. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this again. Basically, it detaches and can transform into a little fighter jet that looks just like this right here. Again, just as detailed as the rest of the kit. Besides that, with them, we do have this little section which has some landing gears which you can throw on the bottom of it for, well, displaying it landed on the ground. Like, there's just so many things you can do with this. Lastly, then, we do have some wire included. Actually, 2 of these wires right here included, and this is for a onboard weapon. That would be in the gauntlets. On these, it does appear like we do have a bit of a kind of long-range weapon in the tip right there, but what you can do with these is move them out like so, flip it around, this bit pops out like that. Underneath, we've got what appears to be a little bit of an anchor section. You pull that little silver bit off, then you attach that onto the end of the wire. The other end of the wire, you've got a plastic adapter to attach the wire into, throw that into the arm, and there you go. You've got a kind of wire anchor kind of thing, obviously for firing into an enemy, something it wants to latch onto, and it probably does something a little bit more than that. But again, this thing has so much stuff going on, so many options, it's nearly endless. Alright, so jumping on into the articulation, it's time to see how the Fenrir performs. So it does have a mild little bounce. Well, if you shake the leg like this now, anything would, honestly. It is solid as a rock, not grabbing it by the legs. So overall, at least so far, it's holding up very, very nicely. It does seem like it's going to hold up over the long run, but it is kind of impossible to tell. Anyway, testing out the articulation with the usual pose. So anyway, getting into the usual post, and this thing is off the charts ridiculous. Now, first off, I will mention everything about the way this moves for the most part is quite user-friendly. It actually works the way you'd expect it to. The only thing that is a little bit confusing at times is the hips. So these are kind of angular dropping hips that you can straighten out. But it does mean that in the usual kind of dropping hips sort of way, that when you're actually rotating the leg while these are out, it changes the angle ever so slightly. That's about it. Otherwise, everything works great. The ankles, the waist, the shoulders, the elbows, everything works perfectly for one of the most beautiful examples of the pose I throw things into ever. It does everything perfectly. Everything's amazing. I did lose a little bit of armor down at the ankle, but that's because I think I may have put that on a little bit wrong, or maybe it just gets compressed a little bit in there. Otherwise, articulation, super perfect. The only thing I can say is it won't stay upright like this itself, but there is a stand included if you want to leave it like this, with a little bit of support. Anyway, so all of the articulation now from the head down. Now be careful when you're moving the head. The front section, the blue and the black of the V-fin can pop off. Anyway, there's the head all the way down, all the way up. This is double jointed for your giggity, giggity, giggity goo. And of course you can get your side to side ever so nicely in there too. So a very nice posable neck. The only thing I'd ask for is a little bit more up, but there is plenty of down. So now moving on down to the torso, and forgive me if I do miss parts because there's just so much going on in here. The manual does tell you about some of the moving aspects in here, so I'll try to make sure. We've seen the backpack already. When it comes to the articulation of the ab crunch, I'm gonna have to disconnect it from this so we can check it out. And there it is all the way to the back and all the way to the front. So it is very, very nice, and you will get those pistons moving inside. The same when you go side to side like so, you get those pistons moving nicely. When it comes to rotation, this can go pretty much the whole way around, no problem. When it comes to the shoulders, we've got a lot going on in the actual torso. So these can pull out like so, and then give you up and down, including all your shoulder rotation right here. Some bits are inclined to fall off, I will mention. So far it's the V-fin, some of the ankle armor, and this bit right here. So definitely worth cementing. And we do have that fully moving and transforming fighter section inside the cockpit. We can open up said cockpit just like so, and we do have these opening hatches in the chest right here, which open like that and like that for your open hatch mode, showing some of the inner frame that does have stickers on it, as well as some nice red detail inside as well. So next up onto the arms and the shoulders, and the shoulder is very, very nice. First off, this is very nicely jointed, so as you can see, you can move it up and out and in, so you can always keep it out of the way of the arm, and with the nice articulation inside the body means you can get this up and nice and high. There goes the V-fin. I'm going to leave that off. That part tends to pop off a little bit, as well as the silver section inside. So again, worth cementing. But anyway, that's how far the arm can move up without having to flip everything around. We do have some very nice shoulder roll motion in a couple of different joints. And when it comes to the hatches, we've got this moving little segment right here. And then we've got this, which moves up and out of the way. And this nice piston movement right here to this. There is a little bit, if I flip this forward, of a piston in there that you can kind of see move to some degree, which is, again, very detailed. When it comes to the rest of the arm, we do have rotation at the upper bicep swivel right here, and a second rotation down here at the elbow, so you can pretty much get everything you want in regards to, well, rotation. We do have a double jointed bend at the elbow, so it can move up and around all the way, very nice. And it moves back like so. Like we've seen multiple times before, these are fully articulated hands, so you can get these into pretty much whatever position you want to get them into. And we do have a bit of a weapon system like we would have seen already on the back of the arm here, which moves out like so, rotates around, and just has a lot of nice movement in general. Lastly, then we do have an opening hatch segment in the arm, and that is just a little hatch which opens up just like so to some nice gold and silver within. We have another little bit of a hatch segment right here. This is a pull-out mechanism, and it just pops out like so, again with some nice gold detail inside. So very, very subtle but beautiful detailing. So moving down to the waist unit, when it comes to this, we do have moving side skirts, or should I say front skirts, which move up like so. There isn't really side skirts in particular in here. It's just these little sections, but these can disconnect and then move on a rear ball joint to keep them completely out of the way of the legs. On top of that then, around back we do have multiple moving segments, including the rear skirtings which move up and down just like so, as well as this section right here which does move up and down as well. The main movement when it does come to the waist, however, is the ridiculously impressive hip. So if I just pop off the leg, we can see in there, so it's multiple axes of movement in here. So it pops out like so, and then you can straighten it out of again, just so you can kind of have the usual kind of range of motion there, but I assume that will weaken it to some degree, so be careful. Anyway, it just pops on like so, and it just moves on up and in fluidly like that. When it comes to open hatch elements, the waist does not disappoint, so we do have this section here, clicks out and opens like so, and we do have this lower section which opens to some of the nice detail we would be missing on the inner frame, including those nice 3D stickers. The side skirts can move out, these gold pieces can move down, a little bit hard to kind of maneuver I do find at times, so they move out, pull down, to give you a general opening section like that. Moving around to the back, we do have these upper sections which just flip open just like so, so we do have two of those. And there are these opening sections here which are a little bit difficult to access. No, actually just You can flick them open like that. We do have some nice silver metallic colored parts inside. Again, flip open like that. And there we go. There's the opening hatches around the butt. Jumping back up to the arm, I just saw in the instructions that there's another hatch right here. So that one pops open like so, like we would have seen in the build. And finally, moving down to the legs, obviously being the most detailed aspect of the kit. Like we saw, these can drop down at the hips. We do have rotation pretty much, yeah, all the way around right here. I'm gonna pop this off to get a clear look at everything that it does. And first off, we do have a bend at the knee, which bends just like so, moving the knee beautifully. Piston in the front, so I was right, it's just not in the top, it's below. This is it when it closes up yet again, so great sliding mechanism in the knee. We do have a moving little bit of arm right here, that's the one that popped off when I did put it in the pose. There is the foot all the way down, there it is all the way up. We have a great side to side. Again, some armor does pop off occasionally, probably what separates it a little bit from something like Gunpla. Gunpla's plastic doesn't have the kind of rubbery feel this does, so it feels a bit build up a little bit of kind of spring tension in itself before throwing off apart like that. I think that's kind of what's going on here. Anyway, down here we do have some toes. They can bend up like so, flatten like that. Absolutely beautiful. And of course we do have tons of hatches and stuff in the leg as well, which we're about to check out. And grabbing the instruction manual because this is quite complex and there's a lot going on. First off, we do have this section here. The mechanism to grab it is here. You just pull that out. We've got these little side sections. They pop open like so. It looks like there should be a sticker in there. Maybe I forgot. Looks like there should be some circles where there isn't any. Next up, we do have this part right here. This opens up and out like so. This blue section as well opens like that. Beautiful. And we do have some more maintenance sections in the leg. So the back part opens up like so, extending the piston. And we do have an opening hatch in the front of the foot, which opens for some silver parts inside. So a lot of nice moving aspects, including the articulation and the opening hatches. As for parts I lost while posing it, not too much really. Some did pop off, so some at the ankles, sometimes depending on how you move it. The V fin is definitely the most likely to pop off. And there was a couple of flaps up in the shoulders, but overall, not bad. So anyway, there's a little bit of a comparison showing what it looks like with the open hatches well closed and the open hatches open. Like, if we're speaking just in general Gundam model kit terms, this is something you only see on the most premium Gundam model kits. As in, the best kits Bandai makes, so that just shows just the level of detail In ERA has put into the Fenrir here. There's so many opening hatches, and the difference of what it looks like with them closed versus open is huge. It's not just a couple of little gimmicks here and there. Every single aspect of this kit, well, I guess besides the head, has opening hatches all over the place. Again, premium feature, great display mode, absolutely beautiful. So anyway, that right there is it for the review, and what can I say? All I can really say about this is in the top 5 kits, if not the top 2 kits I have ever built. This is up there with the perfect grade Unleashed new Gundam. Of course it is smaller like we've seen, but when it comes to quality, this is exactly the same, just at a smaller scale. Like I've said so many times, the build is incredible. You build up the inner frame with all of that beautiful detail, attach on all the armor, and then build up an array of weapons I have never seen the likes of before. This is the Mecha model kit with the best weapons I have ever seen. They're all top tier quality, they all reflect the Mecha in their look and quality. They've got multiple different kind of ways of attaching together, and then they can all mount seamlessly and beautifully onto the mech itself. The weapons off the charts entirely. But yeah, when it comes to all the other things, aesthetically this is amazing looking. Everything about it is perfect. When it comes to the articulation, again, everything is perfect. I've put it through the ringer and it's still rock solid. It can hold on to its weapons, which are massive, and it holds them parallel to the ground with no issues whatsoever. Stand is included to get up in the air, everything just works. When it comes to the actual, well, build quality in the end, I guess I just mentioned that. What can I say? This is 11 out of 10 in every aspect. I guess I give it a honorary Gundarium tier, even though it's not Gunpla, but that is the level it is. If you're looking for mecha model kits that rival and even defeat Gunpla, this is what you want. If you build mecha model kits, you need to build this. Anyways, always thank you so much for watching. I got this off of AliExpress. If you want one too, you can support the channel by grabbing it through the link in my description. And as always, make sure to come back for more mecha model kit reviews, and I'll see you next time. It's the end of the video, so that means it's time to thank all of those awesome people that support me on the channel memberships as well as over on Patreon, including Stephen Collier, Izzy's Jim, Christopher Hamzy, Dismaz, Caleb Engelhardt, Joe, or G95061, Scotty Thomas, Van Fon, Stephen Collier again, and gunpla.deals.